What if I told you the most powerful part of your day happens when no one else is awake? Between darkness and dawn, Stoics found their edge, not through action, but through awareness. In those quiet hours, when the city sleeps and distractions vanish, a different kind of strength emerges. Not the strength to conquer the world, but the strength to conquer yourself. Lesson 1. Stillness before the storm. Before the noise comes the silence. Before the pressure comes the breath. Before the demands of the world comes your chance to prepare. The Stoics understood something most people forget. If you don't command the morning will command you. And soon, so will everything else. Marcus Aurelius didn't wake with dread. He woke with direction. Before dawn broke over the Roman Empire, he was already facing the hardest opponent, himself. Not the enemies at the border, not the weight of ruling an empire, but the subtle temptations of delay, distraction, and forgetting who he was. In his private journal, he reminded himself, at dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, I have to go to work. As a human being, the early morning was not a punishment. It was a return to discipline, to virtue, to self. Fast forward 2,000 years. The names have changed, but the struggle hasn't. Take Daniel, 32 years old, software engineer, living in a city that never slows down. Every morning felt like waking into chaos. Slack messages, red notifications, endless to-do lists. And yet, he couldn't remember the last time he paused to ask himself, why? Then one morning, he woke up. 4:47 a.m. No alarm, no agenda, just stillness. At first, his hand reached instinctively for the phone, but something in him paused. He sat up, felt the cold floor on his feet. Noticed how quiet the world was. For once, his thoughts weren't racing. They were waiting for him to stop and listen. He didn't plan it, but that moment became a ritual. Each morning, before the world screamed for his attention, he sat in silence, not to meditate, not to check a box, but to meet himself again. It was in those moments, those raw, unfiltered minutes before sunrise, that Daniel began to rebuild his mind. Not with apps, not with hacks, but with stillness, with breath, with reflection. He realized something simple, yet life-changing. You don't wake up early to get ahead of others. You wake up early to get ahead of yourself. Because if you don't claim your mind at sunrise, the world will claim it for you by noon. Imagine standing in a quiet room just before a storm rolls in. No distractions, no noise, just air, breath, presence. That's what the morning offers. A moment untouched by chaos. A window into who you truly are. Before the world tells you who to become. You don't rise early to prove anything. You rise early to remember, to realign, to return. As Epictetus said, no great thing is created suddenly. Each morning is a step, and the first step is to wake up before the world does. Lesson 2. Affirmations as anchors. Most people start their day by reacting to alarms, to texts, to expectations they never agreed to. But the Stoics began differently. They started not with noise, but with words. Words chosen with care. Words that weren't meant to impress, but to anchor. Anchors that reminded them who they were and who they were becoming. Marcus Aurelius, before stepping into court, battle, or family duties, would write lines in his private journal. Affirmations like, "Be tolerant with others and strict with yourself." You have power over your mind, not outside events. He wasn't showing off. He was arming himself against ego, against fear, against distraction. Because once the world begins pulling at you, it's already too late to define who you are. That must be done before the pull. Alex learned this the hard way. Sharp mind, corporate climber, always on. But every morning felt like a performance. He didn't wake up into his life. He woke up into a role. The achiever, the expert, the guy who had it all together. But deep down, there was a war between who he was and who the world expected him to be. Then one morning, after a particularly rough week, he cracked open an old notebook he used in college. Inside it, a scribbled quote from Epictetus. "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it." That line hit him like a bolt. He realized he'd been talking success, but living fear. So he wrote a single sentence. "I am not my performance. I am my principles." The next morning, he read it again. This time slower, firmer, louder. Then another line. "I don't chase, I choose." Day by day, the sentences stacked. Not as hype, but as armor. Words became a shield, a compass, a home. Before he spoke to the world, he spoke to himself. Eventually, those affirmations bled into everything. He stopped over-apologizing, stopped breaking his own boundaries. He became less reactive, more rooted. And on the hardest days, when things fell apart, he didn't crumble. Because he had already told himself, "I stand where others sway. I endure." That's the power of Stoic affirmations. They don't just prepare you. They preload your mind with truth. The truth that you are not your inbox. You are not your status. You are not the opinions floating around you. You are what you choose when no one else is watching. This is the heart of prohairesis, the Stoic concept of moral will. The unshakable center. In a loud world, it must be carved in silence. In a chaotic world, it must be chosen, again and again. So tomorrow morning, before you check the headlines, before you scroll past someone else's highlight reel, ask yourself quietly, firmly, what do I stand for? And let the answer guide your day before the world even gets a chance. Lesson 3. Gratitude is a weapon. Most people think gratitude is for the good times, for when things are going well. But the Stoics believed the opposite. Gratitude wasn't an emotion. It was a discipline, a form of warrior vision, to see clearly, to accept reality, to spot the gift inside the struggle. Marcus Aurelius, amidst plague and war, still wrote, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a privilege it is to be alive, to think, to enjoy, to love." Notice he didn't say this on a good day. He said it while ruling a crumbling empire. That's the Stoic way, to train the mind to find light, even while walking through shadows. Take David, single father, working 2 jobs. There was a time when he woke up angry at life, at pressure, at the weight he had to carry. But one night, out of exhaustion, he wrote a list in a crumpled notebook. My daughter smiled at me tonight. I'm still standing. I didn't quit. The next morning, before he turned on the coffee machine, he read that list again. And something shifted. Not his pain, not his workload, but his perspective. That day, when a client snapped at him, he didn't break. Because his morning had already reminded him, there is still something to be thankful for. Always. Gratitude for the Stoic is not naive. It's not about pretending everything is okay. It's about refusing to ignore what still is. You woke up. Your lungs filled. The sun rose. That's not small. That's your starting line. So write it down. Speak it aloud. Even if it feels forced. Especially if it feels forced. Because each morning you practice gratitude. You're choosing not to live in complaint, but in control. Epictetus said, "He is a wise man who does not grieve for the things which he has not, but rejoices for those which he has." Rejoice, not with giddiness, but with grit. Rejoice that you still get to fight, that you still have breath, that the battle isn't over. Gratitude is a weapon. In a world that wants you distracted, bitter and reactive, gratitude is rebellion. And like every weapon, it's sharpest when forged in difficulty. So when you rise tomorrow morning, don't ask what's missing. Ask what remains, then hold it close. Let it carry you forward. Lesson 4. Meditation is mental armor. In the silence before sunrise, there's a choice. To scroll or to sit. To rush or to return. The Stoics chose silence, not to escape the world, but to prepare for it. Marcus Aurelius didn't call it meditation. He called it self-examination. He would sit alone, pen in hand, mind exposed, asking himself, what am I clinging to that weakens me? What if today is my last? What would the wise man do in my place? That stillness wasn't luxury. It was strategy. Because if your mind is chaotic, your life will be too. If you enter the battlefield without armor, you won't last long. Enter Justin, amateur boxer, up at 4:30 a.m. every day to train. His coach noticed something. His body was fast, but his mind was wild, quick to react, quick to lose control. So his coach gave him a challenge. Before touching gloves, he had to sit in silence for 5 minutes. Eyes closed, no movement, no music, just breathe. The first time, Justin hated it. He felt restless, pointless, weak. But the third day, something clicked. He noticed the sound of his own breath, the tightness in his jaw, the tension he carried into the ring. And slowly, those 5 minutes became his weapon. When a fight began and punches flew, he didn't flinch. He'd already faced the noise in his own head before the world brought any. That's the truth of meditation for the Stoic. It's not about peace. It's about preparedness. Meditation is not emptying the mind. It's examining it. It's holding up every thought and asking, does this serve me or weaken me? In a noisy world, the ability to sit still, even for a few moments, is a superpower. The early morning gives you that chance. No messages, no pressure, no masks, just you and your mind. Epictetus taught, first say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. Morning meditation is how you say it, with breath, with attention, with intention. So tomorrow, before the world tries to program your thoughts, take 5 minutes to own them. Sit, breathe, observe, not to find peace, but to forge power. Lesson 5, journaling is self-sculpting. Most men go to battle with the world every day, but few stop to ask, who is the man holding the sword? That's what journaling is for. Not to impress, not to vent, but to uncover the self, layer by layer. Marcus Aurelius journaled in the margins of power, while ruling an empire, while burying his children, while battling disease and betrayal. And still, he wrote, not to be heard, but to remind himself how to live. Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. The page was his mirror, and the pen, his blade. Meet Leo, divorced, recently laid off, sitting at a personal rock bottom. He didn't need motivation. He needed clarity. One morning at 4:15 a.m., too anxious to sleep, he opened an empty notebook and wrote just one question. What am I pretending not to see? That sentence led to 5 pages, honest ones, ugly ones, real ones. He admitted his regrets, named his fears, owned his patterns, and in that darkness, he found a small light. Truth. Journaling didn't fix everything, but it cleared the fog. Now, every morning before sunrise, Leo writes again. Not novels, not affirmations, just what's real. His thoughts, his triggers, his values, his vision. Because a Stoic man doesn't move blindly through life. He studies his path. He questions his motives. He sharpens his character, word by word. That's the power of journaling. You aren't writing to the world. You're writing to the part of you that still believes you can grow. The page listens without judgment, but it also doesn't lie. It will show you your inconsistencies, your avoidance, your forgotten values, and it will offer you one gift: clarity. In the early morning silence, journaling becomes your most honest moment. So grab the pen. Ask the hard questions. Answer without filters. As Seneca wrote, as long as you live, keep learning how to live. And no tool is better for that than the one you hold in your hand. Final lesson: no one is coming. Rise anyway. Between 3 and 6 a.m., the world is asleep. And in that silence, you face a choice: to wait for motivation, to wait for clarity, to wait for someone to tell you what to do, or to rise anyway, because no one is coming to save you. No one is going to whisper the perfect plan in your ear. No one is going to force you to become who you said you would be. That's the raw truth the Stoics faced, and it's the one we must face too. Every morning, you get a head start, not on others, but on yourself. A head start on clarity, on virtue, on becoming unshakable. You don't need noise. You don't need approval. You don't even need to be ready. You just need to begin. And tomorrow morning, when the world still sleeps, step into that silence like a man with a mission. Not to prove anything, not to chase anything, but to remember, you were never meant to live passively. You were meant to rise with purpose, to act with courage, to live on your own terms. The sun will rise. Whether you do or not is your decision. Choose wisely.